Hey, this is Shannon Kringen again on the same day I usually don't do two monologues in one day, but I forgot to say something. I just listened to the monologue I just uploaded. Um, it is September 14th, 2024. And I forgot to say, I realized I listened back to what I record and I realized a lot of times when I do monologues, I feel like I'm assuming that people have never heard me before. And so I reiterate everything. And I don't know if that's part of my autism or what. I'm always feeling like I want to clearly communicate. And I feel like I don't know how to express myself in a way where I'm understood because I feel like I have complicated points to make and I don't always feel understood. And then I think, well, why do I need other people to understand me? Like I've been on YouTube since 2005 and I'm not very popular. I only have like 2000. Thank you to everyone who subscribes. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much. I really appreciate every subscriber. Sometimes I get snarky comments and I try to ignore those. You're entitled to your opinion if you have a snarky opinion about me, but I don't want to let it get me down, but I'll use it as kindling for my fire. I will, you know. But I forgot to say in the video, I think I come off as a little naive. There's really sinister things happening on this planet. And depending on who you ask, the villains are certain people and the heroes. Like we tend to think that famous people on television are heroes or villains, and there's nothing in between. And I'm witnessing a lot of hypocrisy and people who think they're self-righteous and they think they're the good people, and then they are shadow projecting onto others and gaslighting other people. So some people are getting gaslit and you're basically not allowed actually to criticize. And what I say is people say, well, of course you're allowed to do whatever you want. No, actually, if you express your free speech in a certain way, you are canceled and you are erased and you are deleted and you are told that you're not allowed to express yourself online. So basically, I would be lying if I didn't say how scared and angry I am about the amount of censorship and suppression and oppression that's happening in the world. And the fact that, the economic problems in the United States, I can only speak for somebody who lives in the United States, because I don't live in other countries, although I have traveled to Australia and Mexico and a bunch of different European countries. So I have tasted a little bit of what it's like to live in other countries. I feel like I come off as a little naive, and I'm not naive at all. I'm actually noticing a lot of contradictions, and I notice people's lies and hypocrisy, and I find it really creepy and sinister. And people are self-righteous, and the people that think they're the good people that constantly point their fingers at who they think the bad people are. And I'm intentionally not saying who I think is good or bad, but I have a different opinion than I'm supposed to. In liberal Seattle, I don't necessarily subscribe to the cliche opinions I'm supposed to have. I mean, even just, I'm not a vegan. I am disgusted by the fact that there's a lot of clean plant protein being promoted as healthy, and it's basically processed junk food. It's mostly just flour, sugar, and vegetable oil. That could be about as healthy as eating a donut for dinner. So if you want Twinkies, it's vegan. It's like there are if you want to be a healthy vegan, you eat fruits and vegetables and nuts and whole natural foods. So processed junk food is disgusting, and people pretending like vegetable oil is the best thing to eat. It's like it's clean. Yeah, it's been bleached and sterilized. So like vegetable oil is not a part of my diet as much as possible, although they put it in everything, including granola bars. So I avoid that. But I eat actual meat with real fat. I eat whole fat on the meat. So I feel a little angry. Like my video was very positive, the previous monologue that I just recorded. It was very positive, but I forgot to say the dark side. The dark side of humans who shadow project onto other people and who are hypocrites and who think they're the nice people when they're really just going around being rude to other people and shaming other people for not fitting into a box and stereotyping. People stereotype each other and shame each other and virtue signal each other instead of allowing ourselves to have the freedom of thought and the freedom of expression and use our imagination. People make fun of people for being too realistic versus too full of their own imagination. I personally am a complicated person. I feel like I can have my feet on the ground and be practical with how I earn a living and walk dogs and do basic, eating and sleeping and cleaning and personal hygiene and stuff like that. But I can also be a dreamer, and I can also acknowledge that I'm autistic and dyslexic and ADHD. But when I say that, I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm saying that I have a challenging brain and I'm trying to navigate. There's so many chemicals in our food, and there's so many chemicals. We're supposed to think it's healthy for humans to dominate nature and genetically modify everything and tinker with everything. And I don't like that. And the mainstream culture is kind of gross to me in terms of food and a lot of movies. I don't even watch, I love actors and I love a good script and a good character movie, driven movie or whatever, fiction movie. Um, but a lot of the action movies and the violence and all this like ridiculous, shallow, silly, not well-written comedy. Like there's a lot of really bad comedy. There's a lot of people being really snarky, and the people who think they're the good people being snarky towards the people they think are so people are stereotyping each other on both sides of an issue, and it's just so creepy and gross, and there's lots of darkness and just shadow projection, hypocrisy, gaslighting, cancel culture. I wrote a song about it called Cancel Culture, Vulture, Virtue Signals, Soldiers. Gaslights, BS in flight, ignites, and all this kind of stuff. So, and there's propaganda, and people argue about what is propaganda versus what is censorship versus what is, so it's just a lot of creepy stuff happening in the world. So my previous video, I think, was a little bit too Pollyanna and I sounded naive. So I'm just saying to you that I'm well aware of the creepy, disgusting hypocrisy, shadow projection, the Darth Vader-ness of what's happening. People thinking certain politicians are like Darth Vader and certain politicians are Luke Skywalker. I kind of see most politicians as a little bit of this and a little bit of that, little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll, a little bit of dishonesty, like a used car salesman trying to sell you a lemon and pretending like it's a nice car when really it's not. So I don't really trust any of it. And yet I'm supposed to pick the lesser of two evils, whatever that is. I'm not okay with that. It's very disturbing, and I don't have an answer. This video is just to acknowledge the manure. Another line in a poem I wrote is called "Smart Enough to Endure" or "Strong Enough to Endure the Manure Mentality." The manure mentality. And what's cool about manure, I have another song called "Fertilizer." Fertile eyes, wise beyond thighs, guys. I mean, beyond sexuality. Wise beyond thighs, guys. The manure mentality, which is, think of what manure is like excrement. Manure, you can use it to fertilize the earth. Part of how they regenerate soil is to use manure. So the poop of an animal can be used to fertilize the soil. So something that's kind of stinky and gross and yucky actually helps create new life. So it's the cycle of nature. The poo becomes fresh green grass. So something that's kind of gross becomes beautiful flowers, that sprout out of the earth. So I find that fascinating, that something really negative and stinky and gross, like waste, manure, excrement, manure, whatever you call it, can be something turned into life and something positive. So there's order and chaos in nature. And so I acknowledge the hypocrisy, the lying, the cheating, the stealing that's happening, people hijacking each other's opinions, people shaming each other, I have been canceled. I had something broadcast and they canceled me, and it was very painful to me. I made a mistake. I said something that upset people, But at the same time, I acknowledge that when somebody says something that's offensive to other people, I was trying to make a point, but it wasn't appreciated. The point I was trying to make was not appreciated because I used strong language that was controversial. I was trying to make a point and it was not appreciated. So they canceled me, and it was really disturbing to me. And yet I acknowledged the mistake that I made, but they were very self-righteous about it and acting like they were the good people. So pat themselves on the back for canceling me for trying to, for making a controversial point. So, oh, shame on Shannon Kringen for trying to make a point that was controversial. These days, pretty much anything that is not in alignment with mainstream news television is sponsored by certain large corporations that have no ethics and no liability. So it's like, that's creepy, don't you think? Don't you think? Yeah, we're the good people shaming the bad people. So it's like, these kinds of things really piss me off. So there's a lot of BS in the world right now. So I'm just here to say that hopefully nothing I said is going to get me in trouble on this platform, but free speech is pretty dangerous. So it's like, that's just sad that we are being trained in that way. So you must conform or you will be canceled. You must obey, like Pink Floyd, The Wall. Have you seen that movie when they're marching to the meat grinder? That ring a bell? So when we're all like regurgitating bytes of sound, regurgitating bytes of sound, so we're all supposed to just be in alignment with conforming to a certain way of thinking. You are the bad people and we are the good people. When people that think they're good don't question their own shadow, that's when you have Houston, we have a problem. When leaders think they can do no wrong, no matter what political side they're on, that is dangerous. That is arrogant. If someone is so arrogant, they think that they never make a mistake or that their own shadow isn't a shadow. If you think you don't have a shadow, that is dangerous. You can abuse your power and think you're the good leader, and then you become like what you think. You know what I mean? When you think that you are the hero and those other people are the villain and you don't see your own. I think Martin Luther King Jr. talked about this, about how if you don't see your own shadow, if you get carried away, I know I have a dark side. I am willing to say, me, I have a dark side. But when other people think they're better than me and they don't acknowledge they have a shadow side, that's what really gets me. That really upsets me when people are not aware of their own abuse of power and their own dark side. I have a dark side. Everyone has a dark side. Every politician has a dark side. Every leader has a dark side. But there's also something positive. So most famous people throughout history that are considered heroes or villains, if you look more closely, you will see that within each hero is a villain. Within each villain is a hero. It's complicated. That's the way I see it. So I just wanted to share that a little bit more of the dark side. So yeah, there is the dark side always, and there always is the positive side. So every morning I wake up, in fact, and I think, okay, what am I allowed to think and do today? What freedom do I have left? What freedom do we as humans have left? Because I think that Americans are being encouraged to believe that freedom is dangerous. We used to think freedom was a good thing. And now I think Americans are being trained to think that freedom is dangerous because there are some people who abuse their freedom and do horrible things with it. And that's true. And that's disturbing and that's frightening. And yet, if we get too carried away with fear about that, then we willingly want our freedom to be taken away to be protected by something larger than us. It's like we're losing our faith in the goodness of the universe, you know? So that's just something to think about as well. The dark side. What do we do with the dark side? Do we get caught up in fear, or do we stay with love and having empathy for the predator? Empathy for, and when I say that, I don't just mean literally a predator that eats, like an animal hunting and killing and eating another animal, which is part of nature. But the so-called people that we label as the bad guy, versus the good guy. I think we need to actually be a little more equanimous about who we label as good or bad and try to acknowledge the nuances. Because if we shadow project, if we think we're just completely innocent and good and we blame other people for something negative and we don't see our own shadow, then things get flipped all around and it can get, everything is just like a big hypocrisy festival, like a big contradiction. Like the people we think are mean are actually the nice people, and the people we think are nice are actually the mean people. But maybe the truth is most humans are a little bit of all of it. And maybe most people don't fit into the extreme stereotype that we have of them, whether it's, again, worshiping someone like they're a hero or demonizing somebody like they're a villain, like a cartoon version of reality. I feel like that's what humans are doing right now. We're getting really caught up and carried away with extreme polar opposites and not acknowledging the nuances. That's all. So that's what I was going to say. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.